up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak. On the sidelines of the APEC summit, President Park Geun-hye asked China to persuade North Korea to end its nuclear programs and to focus on economic development. Her Chinese counterpart says Beijing strongly opposes Pyongyang's nuclear ambitions. The country's customs agency says 40 entities were found to have engaged in illegal transactions worth around $940 million through offshore tax havens. Former President Chun Doo-hwan and his family's business are on the list. Plus, this year's Nobel Medicine Prize goes to two American and a German-born scientists for their research that paved the way for the better prevention and treatment of conditions such as diabetes and Alzheimer's. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Tuesday, October 8th, and I'm Choi Yusan here in Seoul. We begin this morning in Bali, where President Park Geun-hye held a series of one-on-one meetings on the sidelines of this year's APEC summit. And one of the summits included one on North Korea-related matters with our Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju, traveling with the president, filed this report.
President Park has asked China to persuade North Korea to make the right decision and give up its nuclear ambitions. During a bilateral summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping ahead of the official opening of the APEC summit on Monday, President Park stressed that Pyongyang should not put everything it has into nuclear development when so many North Koreans are suffering from chronic malnutrition.
북한이 핵을 포기하고 경제 발전에 주력하도록 많이 설득해 주시고 힘써 주시기를 부탁드리겠습니다.
She also expressed regret over North Korea's sudden postponement of a plan to reunite families separated by the Korean War and emphasized the importance of close cooperation between Seoul and Beijing. In the third bilateral summit between Presidents Park and Xi, the Chinese leader took a stronger stance on the North Korean nuclear issue. President Xi reportedly said that China opposes North Korea's possession of nuclear weapons outright and will take a firm stand against future nuclear tests. A high-ranking Korean government official told reporters that the Chinese president also pledged to abide by UN Security Council resolutions against Pyongyang. President Park had earlier expressed appreciation to Beijing for announcing last month that it was banning a long list of equipment and chemical substances from export to North Korea. During her bilateral summit with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the two sides agreed to work towards signing a Korea-Canada free trade agreement by the end of this year. She also held separate talks with Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto and Peruvian President Ollanta Humala and discussed ways to expand their economic cooperation. Later in the day, in her keynote speech at the first session of the APEC summit, President Park put an emphasis on the need to push ahead with trade liberalization within the Asia-Pacific region while staying away from trade protectionism, even during hard times, to revitalize the world economy. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News, Bali.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says an underwater pipeline along South Korea's eastern coast could be considered to export natural gas from Russia's Sakhalin to South Korea. Russian media quoted Putin at this week's APEC summit as saying that the pipeline could either run from Sakhalin to Vladivostok and North Korea towards South Korea, or it could go under the ocean. The underwater pipeline would be up to 900 kilometers long, and the Russian leader's comments come as the land pipeline option through North Korea is becoming more unlikely due to the prolonged tensions on the Korean peninsula. In 2008, Seoul and Moscow agreed to build the three-nation pipeline by 2015 to provide affordable Russian gas to South Korea while normalizing relations between the two Koreas. Marking the start of the current parliamentary session, the ruling Saenuri Party laid out its goals on Monday. They include placing a greater focus on President Park's pledge to further develop the country's economy. Our political correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
Saenuri Party leader Hwang Woo-yeol told lawmakers Monday that the government and the legislature should come together to raise the nation's per capita GDP to $30,000. Saying that the nation needs a new paradigm for economic growth, Hwang stressed that President Park's vision for a creative economy based on an individual's creativity and the convergence of industry and culture is the answer. As such, he said the parliament should approve laws that support young people seeking to launch their own businesses.
The National Assembly must set up a legislative framework enabling Korea to enter the era of the $30,000 per capita GDP and become an advanced nation where people are happy.
The ruling party leader asked the minority parties not to abuse the National Assembly Advancement Law, which was designed to keep the majority party from ramming bills through the legislature without the participation of the minority.
We must vote on bills on schedule, as the people expect. If the majority party rams a bill through on its own or the minority party opposes a bill just for the sake of opposition, public opinion will turn sour and the people will be quick to judge in elections.
The ruling party leader also offered an apology for the government's scaled-down pension plan for senior citizens, seen as a retreat from one of the president's major campaign pledges. The minority parties, including the main opposition Democratic Party, criticized the ruling party leader's speech, saying that he glossed over important issues that have rattled the nation, including the spy agency's alleged meddling in last year's presidential election and questions about how the ruling party got its hands on a transcript of the 2007 Inter-Korean Summit before the December election. The Democratic Party will lay out its goals in a speech Tuesday. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
And speaking of legislative initiatives, starting in 2016, the maximum working hours in the country will likely be reduced from the current 68 hours to 52 per week. The ruling party and the Labor Ministry agreed on a revision bill that would require employees to clock in for no more than 40 hours per week, plus an additional 12 hours of overtime, which includes work done on weekends. Employees can currently do 12 hours of overtime work during the week, plus another 16 hours at the weekend. If the bill gets the green light from Parliament, firms with at least 1,000 full-time employees will be required to adopt the new work hour limit by 2016, and smaller firms at a later date. The country's customs agency has revealed illegal currency transactions worth more than $940 million were filtered through offshore tax havens. Former President Chun Doo-hwan's family is among those implicated. Our Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
The Korea Customs Service said Monday that it has uncovered evidence that the family of former President Chun Doo-hwan was involved in illegal foreign currency transactions. The agency says transactions that took place through tax havens like the British Virgin Islands as a means to evade taxes were conducted by manipulating prices of import and export products.
We found some suspicious transactions related to the exports and imports of Chun's companies. We have notified state prosecutors about the discovery.
An investigation into Chun's family appears to be just a matter of time despite the former president's pledge to return ill-gotten gains back to the country. The Customs Office launched a probe into the outflow of wealth through illegal currency transactions in June, in line with the government's tightened clampdown on underground economic activities. In addition to the transactions linked to Chun and his family, the customs agency uncovered 40 companies involved in illegal foreign currency transactions worth more than 1 trillion won, or roughly $940 million. The customs agency's move comes after an independent journalist group unveiled a list of individuals and companies who reportedly established paper companies in tax havens to avoid paying taxes. 5 of the 40 companies confirmed to have evaded corporate taxes worth more than $13 million have been reported to the National Tax Service, while the Customs Agency continues its investigations into the rest. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
While the fiasco surrounding the troubled Dongyang Group continues to unfold, the country's financial watchdog is now asking the prosecution to investigate the head of the conglomerate. A civic group representing investors who have suffered losses from the debt-ridden conglomerate is planning to launch a campaign this week to protest the financial watchdog's lack of oversight. Our Yurian has more.
The Financial Consumer Agency has been growing increasingly frustrated with the lack of action from the country's financial watchdog in dealing with the massive losses incurred by the tens of thousands of people who invested in the cash-strapped Dongyang Group. The Financial Supervisory Service has already been under fire for failing to properly monitor the debt-ridden Dongyang Group. The country's 30th largest conglomerate had sold a massive amount of high-risk corporate bills and bonds, mostly to individual investors, to repay its debt. The Financial Consumer Agency, or FCA, says it has repeatedly asked to meet with the head of the FSS to create a relief plan for the nearly 20,000 investors who have filed for losses with the FCA. After failing to get any response, the consumer agency vowed on Monday to launch a campaign calling on the head of the financial watchdog, Choi Soo-hyun, to step down. The Financial Supervisory Service maintains that it is doing all it can to deal with the Dongyang crisis. Since last Friday, the watchdog has been analyzing more than 8,000 complaints filed by investors holding Dongyang debt. Around 40,000 investors have fallen victim to the Dongyang crisis. And with no relief plan announced, their concerns are growing.
Most of these people have invested their marriage funds, retirement savings, and severance pay. It's hard to even imagine the pain that these people are going through. One widowed investor has even lost all of her former husband's insurance money.
Dongyang Group owes retail investors 2 trillion won, or roughly $1.8 billion, and about $840,000 to financial firms as of the end of last month. Yurian, Arirang News.
More than 100 small and mid-sized firms here in Korea could face debt restructuring this year following a series of defaults by larger firms that could also affect them. The Financial Supervisory Service and the creditor banks are reportedly drawing up a list of corporate debtors from more than 1,000 small and medium enterprises that owe banks roughly 50 billion won, or around $47 million. The corporations will either be subject to a creditor-led debt workout program or court receivership based on their degree of credit risk. The list will be announced next month. The highest tally was back in 2010 when 121 SMEs were placed under debt restructuring programs. Korea has cemented its status as the world's most wired nation, ranking #1 on the United Nations Net Connectivity Table for the 4th year in a row. The Global Index of Information and Communications Technology Development is based on 11 indicators measuring internet access, use, and skills of around 150 countries. The index is compiled annually by the International Telecommunication Union, a UN agency specializing in expanding connectivity. European countries mostly dominated the top 10 list.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations.
President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a...
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Chun Doo-hwan said Tuesday. The World Bank has lowered its growth forecast for East Asian economies for 2013 and 2014, citing slower growth in China and other countries in the region. In a report Monday, the World Bank said it expects East Asia to expand by 7.1% this year, which is down 0.7 percentage points from an earlier forecast. It also cut next year's expected growth to 7.2%. The World Bank says the slowing growth in the region is a result of China shifting from an export-oriented economy to a more domestically focused one. It also added that growth in larger middle-income countries like Indonesia and Thailand has slowed due to lower investment and lower than expected commodity prices. The International Monetary Fund says Korea, Australia, and Canada are better placed than any other developed economies to deal with the expected global market volatility when the U.S. starts scaling back its massive monetary stimulus program. In a report released Tuesday, the agency said it measured a country's ability to withstand a major influx of capital outflows, which is expected to happen when the Federal Reserve starts tapering its $85 billion monthly asset purchases. The IMF said Korea, Australia, and Canada had strong fundamentals, citing their high currency reserves and low reliance on foreign funding. As the U.S. government shutdown moves into its second week, the country's multi-billion-dollar defense industry is having to adjust to the new environment. Defense contractor Lockheed Martin has put about 2,400 workers on unpaid leave due to the shutdown, 20% less than initially planned. However, United Technologies, which makes Black Hawk helicopters, scrapped its furlough plans altogether. On Monday, there appeared to be little hope for a deal to end the shutdown after the weekend passed with both sides in deadlock. Lawmakers have until next Thursday to increase the nation's multi-trillion-dollar debt ceiling. White House National Economic Council Director Gene Sperling did not rule out a short-term increase to the borrowing cap, such as 2 or 3 weeks, which could offer more time for an agreement. The first of this year's Nobel Prizes have been announced. 3 scientists have been named as the winners of this year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for their work in discovering how cells transport material. James Rothman, Randy Schekman, and Thomas Shutoff will share the prize. The mechanism the 3 men discovered is critical in how the brain communicates and the release of hormones.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2013 KBO postseason set to take place later tonight. Well, that is if the weather can hold up, but either way, a crucial Game 1 of the best-of-5 series as the Doosan Bears and the Nexen Heroes are set to square off at Mokdong Stadium for Game 1. Now, taking them out are the 2 American aces, Dustin Nipper for the Doosan Bears and Brandon Knight for the Nexen Heroes. Now, Nipper finished off the season with a 12-4 record with an ERA of 3.58, while Knight finished off the season with a 12-10 record with an ERA of 4.43. But Dustin Nipper holds an 0-2 record against the Nexen Heroes this season, while Brandon Knight holds a 2-0 record against Doosan. So it's anybody's game to kick off the 2013 KBO postseason. And staying in the KBO, the candidates for the 2013 MVP and the 2013 Rookie of the Year honors were revealed yesterday. And seems like a couple of Nexen and Doosan players are on the list as well. Now leading the race for the 2013 KBO MVP are Pyongyang, the starting pitcher for the Samsung Lions, who finished off the regular season with a record of 14-4 as he led the Samsung Lions to another pennant. Also, the LG Twins captain Lee Byung-gyu in the list as well as he led the team to their first playoff berth in a decade, followed by Park Geun-hye, who had another monster season as he looks to win his second straight MVP honors. Meanwhile, Doosan's lefty starter Yoo Hee-kwan leading the list of Rookie of the Year candidates, as well as NC's Lee Jae-hak and Na Sung-bum. And staying in baseball, but over in the majors, where Hyun-jin made his postseason debut as the LA Dodgers faced off against the Atlanta Braves for Game 3 of the National League Division Series. The 25-year-old rookie struggles in his debut, pitching just 3 innings, giving up 4 runs on 6 hits while only striking out 1 batter. But the good news is the Dodgers lineup explodes against the Braves pitching as they score 13 runs on 14 hits, including Carl Crawford's 3-run shot in the 2nd inning of the game. The Dodgers win Game 3 13-6, and they now have a 2-1 series lead. And shifting over to football, where the Brazilian national team arrived at the Incheon International Airport on Monday, with the fans eager to check out some of the top stars in the sport. And sporting a nice beanie and a pair of shades was the biggest star of them all, Neymar of Barcelona, who arrived in Korea for the first time. But not only him, names like Marcelo, Dani Alves also arrived as 50 or so fans greeted the Brazilians at the airport. Of course, this coming Saturday, Korea faces off against Brazil at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. And moving on, everyone knows Park Geun-hye isn't having the greatest time over in the English Premier League, and everyone knows that he hasn't been seeing any playing time with Arsenal neither. But there's a good chance that he might actually move, as Wigan Athletic expressed interest in the striker. Now, the second-tier team in the Championship League is seeking an emergency loan for 3 months. According to the team, they're also currently in talks with Arsenal in finalizing the deal. Owen Coyle, who currently manages Wigan, used to manage Lee Chung-young with the Bolton Wanderers. If the deal goes through, it's a great news for Park, who's looking to get some playing time as well. And so with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, get ready, guys. Typhoon Danas has increased in size, also in strength. Now, if you're in the central region, don't forget to take your umbrella on your morning commute. But for the people in the rest of the country, I highly recommend you wear a raincoat instead of carrying an umbrella because of gusty winds. And it's drizzling right now, but the showers will turn into torrential rain in the east coast and the southern coastline and the mountainous areas in Jeju in the afternoon. And as we can see, typhoon warnings and advisory has been issued nationwide, and they are forecast to stay in effect until late this evening amid heavy downpours and high winds, so please take precautions to avoid serious damages. Now, tomorrow is Hangul Day, a public holiday here in Korea, and weather condition will be quite different from today's. A calm and mostly sunny day is expected in most regions, but Jeju and the southern provinces can expect lingering showers till tomorrow morning. But by tomorrow afternoon, the entire nation will be able to bask under the sun, with afternoon highs hovering in the mid-20s. And temperature-wise for today, Seoul will get up to 21 degrees Celsius, which is 70 degrees in Fahrenheit, and the high in Daegu will top out at 22, while in Busan and Gwangju, the mercury level will rise to 25. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju will hike up to 25 as well, while Daejeon and Dokdo will stay in the low 20s. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. Well, let's hope this Typhoon Danas doesn't cause any damage. Well, that's all for me at this hour, and please join me again for another update.
And that's it for this Tuesday edition of Daybreak. Stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.